the ecosystem isn't subsidized in the same way, right? Like Google subsidizes language and code and video, but not speech, right? And so from an investor, these are clearly great investments because of, if you just look on the metrics alone. On the other hand, the frontier language space, it's much more complicated because there's so much subsidization, right? You have Meta and Google, a bunch of Chinese players that are entering it. So for a subset of the players, and this is why it's a tricky question, for a subset of the players, you're like, yeah, clearly these are the fastest growing companies we've ever seen. There's tons of value. These are very valuable entities, right? Anthropic, OpenAI. But at the same time, even 3 years in, there've already been a number of companies that, have had to exit early. And so I would say it's kind of a high stakes game where the winners really win, but like it requires a lot of capital to enter the game, and if you're not in one of the leaders like that, capital is forfeit.
We do a show every week with Rory O'Driscoll and Jason Lemkin, and Rory very aptly, I think, just said, listen, with the transition to AI, every investor's just accepted a willingness to go massively up the risk curve on investing. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think it's the requirement of the game. It's like these are very capital intensive companies to build. They have to get the capital from somewhere. They're also the fastest growing companies. And so, for the winners, it's justified. And so I think it's not that investors are willing to go up. I mean, we'd be very happy not to. I mean, I know you would, right? And it would be great to have great returns with low risk. But the nature of the system and the game which we're playing requires it. And by the way, this is the dissonance in all of this. It's just so important to call out, which is on one hand, you do have these great businesses that are very fast growing, and zero-sum thinking has been tremendously wrong. I mean, NVIDIA is continuing to grow in value. The hosting providers, which everybody wrote off as being kind of non-defensible business, continue to grow in value. The model companies, which I can't tell you how many investors wrote off the models. I mean, this question's been around for 3 years. They continue to grow in value. So every layer of the stack continues to grow in value. So on one hand, you're like, it's all working. You should be in the leaders on in every layer of the stack. On the other hand, we've seen tons of wipeouts already for the non-leaders. And so it's almost this bipolar or paradoxical situation where you kind of have to play, but it's very, very high risk.